The Olympics have ended, but don't tell that to the NC State football recruiting department. They're still getting their flips in.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon in order to get started. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. We had some surprising news hit social media on Monday evening. We received another flip in the 2025 NC State football recruiting class. It's not from the Dirty Foot Club, but it's from another blue school right down the road. 3-star defensive back Gerritt Kemp has flipped his commitment from Duke to NC State. Now, this is interesting on a couple different levels, being that Gerritt Kemp was committed to Duke as a wide receiver, but is committing now to NC State as a DB.
Yeah, like you said, this is a layered situation, but also it always is good to take away good players from your crosstown or in-conference opponents. Like, that's objectively a good thing, because when you look at the situation in terms of, how the numbers end up working out, like, yes, it's in the summer, so they have plenty of time to replace him, go out and find somebody who they think will be a good fit. But objectively speaking, there was a reason that they were after this dude. And his offer list is absolutely insane for a 3-star. I have never in my life seen the 3-star with the type of offers this young man has. So, I'm perplexed, but I'm happy all the same.
There's a little bit of reading of the tea leaves that you have to do looking at some of his high school offers. Now, again, this is a 3-star, was wide receiver that committed to Duke, but he held offers from NC State originally. He did visit us over the summer, but also Ole Miss, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, and several other schools. That's a pretty impressive list. All those SEC schools, that's the real deal. That means business when you have those type of schools in your inbox. How did he end up at Duke? I know we talked a little bit about this before we hit the record button. No disrespect. Okay, maybe a little bit of disrespect. If you have that type of offer list, how do you end up at Duke? I mean, we're happy to have him now because we might just have a diamond in the rough, so to speak. I'm surprised that he did end up at Duke as a wide receiver, being that now he's flipping as a DB, but all of those SEC offers feels a little crazy to me.
I'm going to tell you, the way that things like this end up happening, sometimes recruits really do think about life outside of football in a very heavy manner. And with all due respect, regardless of how good your football team is, a degree with certain names on it hits different than a degree with other names.
Fair.
Like, yes, if you're a great player and you get to open what's that guy's name? Stetson Bennett's Honda of Athens, like, great. But that's not going to be the case for most guys, and he's planning for life after football, most likely. I'm not sure. That's just my opinion, because that's the only feasible reason I could see looking at Duke amongst those other schools and saying, a half-empty stadium even when we're good. A coach who flamed out in the ACC the first time. A program that cannot retain any good talent in terms of players or coaches. They're going to leave regardless before they get their full spill there. That's where I want to be. What? Well, what are we doing here?
Perhaps the writing was sort of always on the wall for Gerritt Kemp, but something else that you can always read on the wall is how consistent the NC State recruiting staff is. A lot of times when a kid commits, we'll see them speak with local media, whether it's Pack Pride or the Wolfpack or Inside Pack Sports. The common theme is always the consistency of the coaching staff, even when they commit elsewhere. And Gerritt Kemp was talking to the media. He said that even when he was committed to Duke, he was surprised that NC State stayed in contact as often as they did. In fact, they told him after he committed to Duke that they would continue to recruit them. And then he was pleasantly surprised when they absolutely meant their word. He even said it had reached a couple points over the summer that NC State was reaching out more than Duke was. And that type of consistency was ultimately what led him to flipping his commitment. Now he's running with the Pack.
Well, I guess I got the strategy I need to avoid in NCAA 25 because I'm seeing some flips I'm not liking. And apparently, you know, they take away my ability to give more hours to guys, but that's neither here nor there. In all seriousness, you know, the Wolfpack have become notorious in some sense for maintaining those relationships and getting guys with the Pack after an original commit, a la Noah Rogers, a la Mr. Jackson out of Weddington. You know, you see situations where guys are committed to place X, Y, and Z, but NC State never goes away. You know, it's like how people joke about your girl's guy best friend is just waiting in the wings for that moment where you slip up. I'm not saying that NC State doing some elite dirty macking, but they waiting in the wings. They wait. Hey, listen, all I'm saying is Jim did get payment in. You know what I'm saying? Like, it worked out.
They might be doing some dirty macking, but they're also racking up the wins in the win column. I'll tell you that much. Another theme that's consistent with Gerritt Kemp's commitment here to NC State is he's a Georgia kid. NC State's doing a really good job in this 2025 class and reaching out to these other states around us and plucking some top-tier talent away from mostly SEC schools. Like I mentioned, Gerritt Kemp is from Tacoola, Georgia. He had an offer from Georgia, and now he's coming to NC State. To routinely pluck kids out of SEC country, whether they're getting offers from Ole Miss or Florida, Kentucky, LSU, for NC State to stay competitive and win some of those battles in that area, it's so big. We spend a lot of time talking about this, but in the long run, that is how you will consistently build this program in an upward trajectory. You keep bringing in talent from that SEC hotbed, bringing them to state and letting them develop here. We're going to continue to keep building something here. And so that's very obviously on the path that we're following. So Gerritt Kemp now committed to NC State from Duke. It is just a little bit sweeter to take one off the hands of a local rival. Now this makes 2 flips in the 2025, actually 3 flips in the 2025 class. 2 of them are from Duke and the Dirty Foot Club. We also had a recent flip, as I think it was last week. Cage Payne was a 3-star offensive lineman committed to Troy. Now he too is running with the Pack. So the 2025 class is continuing to build some momentum, still waiting on some of the bigger fish, so to speak, to commit to the 2025 class. But nonetheless, people around the country, and especially in this region of the United States, they're paying attention to what NC State's doing on the recruiting trail.
Absolutely. And again, there's a big name that, you know, I said about Noah Rogers. Keep an eye on that situation. Even after he went to Ohio State, there's one very big situation folks need to keep their eye on during this season. I'm going to just leave it at that.
Big commitment for NC State. Gerritt Kemp, a 3-star now DB, flips his commitment from Duke to NC State. We're certainly more than happy to have him here in the red and white. Coming up next, we're getting into day 9 of our 1st and 10 series, talking about turnover margin and its importance to an elite season. More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor of the day is Ibotta. It's still summertime, which means it's still barbecue season. You need to stock up on all of your grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Ibotta. You won't have to choose between burgers or hot dogs because you can get both. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every single time you shop. You can earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies and even toys. You can make sure that you are beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns up to $256 back per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or maybe even a fancy dinner between you and someone special. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and so many more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for just trying Ibotta and using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back. And again, using code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store using code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College on Ibotta. College football is back, and the Locked On College Football podcast kicks off the action with a live season preview at 7 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, August 20th on the Locked On College 24/7 streaming YouTube channel. This 4-part series covers each of the major 4 conferences with discussion on which ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC teams will have a shot at the expanded college football playoffs. Be sure to check out the special. Kent and I are both on the ACC version, so be sure to see us on that. And this is streaming on the Locked On College 24/7 YouTube channel or on Amazon Fire TV. This is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Middle portion of our Tuesday show, now getting back into our 1st and 10 series. This is day 9 here on Tuesday, 9 days left until kicking off the 2024 season. This series is outlining the 10 goals that NC State football must hit in order to reach Charlotte for a second time, meaning a berth to the ACC championship. Today, we're talking turnover margin. The goal that we've set for day 9 is that NC State football needs to be in the top 2 in the conference in overall turnover margin. Quick note before I hand it off to you, Kenton. NC State was actually tied for 13th best in the country in overall turnover margin. It was +9, and that was good enough for number 1 in the ACC last year.
The name of the game is simple, right? Possession is 9/10 of the law. It's 9/10 of winning. Take care of the football, take the football away. If you can do those 2 things at a high level, even when the offense was sputtering, we did not put the defense in many bad situations. Why? Because obviously you had Boom Kester back there punting that thing off, and you had Brennan Armstrong with, even when he wasn't necessarily the most accurate, for the most part, took care of the ball. So you're looking at a situation where obviously Grayson McCall is going to be asked to pitch it around the yard more. That exposes it to more liable turnovers and all that good stuff. But the idea of maintaining that discipline, the idea of maintaining that rhythm, making the proper read, knowing what to do and when to do it, it's always going to be a timeless situation. So the reality for this is very simple. How well does Grayson McCall read defenses out? I don't think that we'll run the ball enough for fumbles to significantly factor in, but, carrying that as well is very important.
It's no secret that the teams that take care of the football at an elite level are the teams that experience more success than a lot of the others. And
absolutely,
we spent a lot of time talking about Grayson McCall and his propensity to protect the football. I believe his career stat line, I think he's 88 pass touchdowns to just 14 interceptions. That is taking care of the football. So that's a very key point to his game that we're looking to flourish in this year. I also went back and I looked up all the turnover margins for our current opponents here in 2024, looking at how they did last year. Let me roll through these real quick for you. Western Carolina was -7 last year in turnover margin. Not good. Certainly hope to exploit that very early in week 1. Tennessee was +6. Sounds probably about right. They were +6 in turnover margin. Louisiana Tech -9. Ugh, that's brutal. Again,
PU.
When you're facing teams like that, that is when you put pedal to the metal. Pressure up for the entire game and make them beat themselves in addition to you putting the beat down on them as well. Week 4, Clemson was +6. So Clemson and Tennessee were both +6. Northern Illinois, -3. Not good. Wake Forest, -6. Not good. Syracuse, -2. Not good. Cal, -1. Okay, that's sea level, basically. Stanford, -4. Not good. Duke was a net 0. That's a wash. Georgia Tech was +4, decent. And the Dirty Foot Club was +5, decent. But I say all that to say, NC State had a better turnover margin than every single one of our opponents last year. If you can channel that here in 2024, maybe even increase your margin in turnovers, that is a recipe for so much success that you will find yourself in Charlotte.
And Peyton Wilson was a freak of nature. We all talk about how much we're going to miss him and all that stuff around Raleigh. But one thing that is very abundantly clear, right? Last year, I believe NC State was tied for 4th in the nation out of all FBS teams in terms of interception. That did not happen solely from the might and will of Peyton Wilson. That was an effort that took multiple guys all doing things in the right way, being in unison, being in conjunction together. That's what made that happen. So, I'm very intrigued to see how the defensive backs and linebackers generate, and of course, defensive linemen who are responsible for making quarterbacks uncomfortable, making them throw ahead of schedule, making them have to, give up wing and a prayer sometimes. I'm very interested to see how that plays out.
Something that we've heard Tony Gibson talk about is challenging his defense at the beginning of the season, looking at what the team last year did and ensuring them that they have to go out and beat that. For the 2024 defense to have +9 turnover margin to try and match or outdo, that's a high mark to hit. Again, tied for 13th best in the country, and they were number 1 in the conference last year. That is no joke. When you're looking at NC State's schedule, and I just read off all those teams that were in the minuses last year, a lot of these teams are relatively weaker compared to your Tennessees and your Clemsons. So NC State needs to continue to take advantage of these type of things. But also, when you are playing the Tennessees and Clemsons, last year we picked off Klubnik how many times? It was at least twice, I think.
Yeah, I know it was twice for sure.
I know we picked him off twice. Clemson also struggled mightily with protecting the ball in terms of fumbles. I think they fumbled like something ridiculous. It was like 13 or 15 times. They could not stop fumbling. NC State really didn't have that problem in terms of fumbling. You bring in Jordan Waters, who historically does not fumble. Hope I didn't jinx him in saying that. But historically, he takes very good care of the football. So does Grayson McCall. So do our wide receivers. You see what I'm getting at here. Taking care of the football is paramount if this team wants to make it to Charlotte a second time for the ACC championship. You cannot afford to routinely beat yourselves and then expect to win 10 games. So in some senses, you kind of are competing against yourself. You have to strive for perfection. And if you can't hit perfection, then maybe you should get as close as you possibly can to it. Moral of the story here is take care of the football, take care of the game. That's how you're going to win.
And that's what Vince Lombardi said. We will chase perfection and maybe we'll hit greatness along the way. At the end of the day, when you think of the Wolfpack protecting the ball, that's all you need to say. You will not be perfect. There will be turnovers, but chase greatness, chase perfection, and be great along the way.
Last point here for 1st and 10. Now we're going to talk likelihood. Same thing as yesterday. So, Kenton, what do you see as the likelihood that NC State will finish top 2 in the ACC in turnover margin?
I like the bet. I don't love it. I like it. I don't love it. I think that there's a shot that they do it, but man, it's some really prolific defenders around the ACC that love taking the ball away. So I like it. I like it. I am willing to say I believe it'll happen. Not willing to bet too much on it.
This one feels a lot more of a coin flip than yesterday felt, because sometimes turnovers are just sheer luck. Maybe it's a bounce off of a helmet or a hand. Maybe a fumble happens unexpectedly. Turnover margins are very hard to predict, and so this one definitely feels like more of a coin flip. However, the way this defense is set up here in 2024, our secondary is crazy deep. The defensive line is very effective, although not really deep, but you feel good about the depth that you do have.
Yeah.
Linebackers are still a little bit of a question mark, but when you have Sean Brown becoming a captain, he's landing on the Butkus Award list, perhaps Sean Brown will cause quite a bit of havoc there in the middle of the field. So I'm definitely sitting more in the coin flip area of likelihood on this one. But again, turnover margin is going to be extremely, extremely important if NC State has lofty goals this year. But now is where y'all chip in. Tell us what you think in the comments. Do you think NC State will finish top 2 in the ACC in turnover margin? Be sure to let us know. In the last couple minutes here on Tuesday, we're going to get into the opening lines for Vegas. They've set a spread and some over-under for NC State against Western Carolina. More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second sponsor of the day is FanDuel. You've definitely heard us talk all summer long on FanDuel, but that's because it's America's #1 sportsbook. This time of year, we have something a little different for you. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and if you choose, you can cancel at any time. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel. Last couple minutes of our Tuesday show. Let's talk some betting lines. I saw that Vegas has released our opening spread and over-under for the Western Carolina game. Now, if you're like me, you get excited when you see these type of things because I enjoy a friendly wager from time to time. I tend to dabble on FanDuel this time of year because college football is the best if you choose to dabble in that area. As you see now here on the screen, the line has opened at 33.5 in favor of NC State at home. This seems probably about right if you had to make a line yourself, this seems probably about right. There is a very obvious gap in talent. The last time that we played Western Carolina was way back in 2019. We actually blanked them. We won that game by a score of 41-0. And so, me personally, if you get frightened by a spread this big, and generally I do as well, in 2019, with Matt McKay at quarterback, respectfully, not exactly the most explosive offense we've seen at NC State in quite a while, we would have hit this same spread plus a touchdown. We beat them 41-0. So my train of thought here is I actually like NC State to cover this spread of 33.5. What say you, Kenton?
Grayson is one of those guys that he'll call you in the middle of the night smoking a cigarette saying, I got a line on table tennis. I got a line on Russian table tennis. And I know something about that table tennis. No, I'm joking. Grayson isn't a degenerate in that way. But seriously, I'm one of those people, any line 30 plus, too big for me because there are too many variables. Like at any point, Doran could decide to call off the Dogs when they're up 42, maybe 49. And then what? Right? Like you would hope, yeah, our young guys can beat you and they'll whoop the wheels off you and all that. What if they have a guy be out of his gap and the ball finds it? And next thing you know, it's Katie Dids at the doorstep. You know what I mean? Like anywhere 30 plus is too high for me, but I wouldn't be mad at you if you did take this bet.
Yeah, and I think that leads me into my second point is when you look at the over-under. So they've set that at 60.5, meaning if I'm doing my math correctly here, Vegas is roughly expecting a final score of probably something around like 49-10. 49-10 feels probably accurate for a realistic score between these two schools because Western Carolina, I don't see a world in which they score more than 10 points. In fact, 10 points might even be generous. Again, 2019, we were riddled with injury. We were very non-explosive on both sides of the ball. We beat them by 41 points. We're looking at this 2024 roster, perhaps one of our best ever. I think we should beat them by probably way more than 41 points, if we're being honest here. So I would tend to agree with this spread at 33.5 for State. But when you're looking at the over-under, I think I lean under there because, again, Western is not going to be putting up, I don't think they score more than 10. And again, like Kenton was talking about, sometimes it's just one misassignment, one blown coverage, and that ruins this whole entire thing, which if you're into this type of stuff, it makes you want to pull your hair out. But I think NC State's defense is going to come to play. I think the offense
real funny. It makes you want to pull your hair out, huh? Yeah.
Hey, you got mustache there. But yeah, I think NC State's defense is going to come to play. I think the offense is going to put on a show. There is that argument about how much will they show, knowing that they have Tennessee the week after. It's going to be comfortable, regardless of what they do or do not show. So I think that final score is going to be somewhere around 49-10. I would lean the under, but I would also take NC State to cover the spread.
Yeah, that's fair, and that makes a lot of sense.
I'd imagine we'll probably talk a little bit more on that next week, being that we do play the real football next week. We're just 9 days away from kickoff. But that'll do it for us here on Tuesday. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments down in the comment box. The 3-star flip commitment of Gerritt Kemp from Duke to NC State. Another 2025 recruiting win on the trail for that staff. Very glad to see us continue to win in that department. And tell us what you think about our second edition of First and 10. Will NC State be in the top 2 in the ACC in turnover margin? If yes, tell us why you think that. If no, tell us why you think that. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out if you have not already, and we will see you right back here tomorrow on Wednesday for more as always. Until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.